I never mentioned to my daughter that I owned a chain of 12 boutique hotels across 3 states. To her, I was just Mom, the woman who worked long hours, drove a 10-year-old sedan, and clipped coupons at the grocery store. When she called me last month, inviting me to brunch with her fiancé's family, I sensed something in her voice. Hesitation, maybe even embarrassment. So I decided to conduct a little experiment. I would show up as the struggling widow they probably expected to meet. What unfolded that Sunday morning at the country club changed everything. My name is Catherine Hayes, and my daughter Rebecca knows almost nothing about what I do. At 58, I've spent the last 15 years building a hospitality empire from a single failing motel I purchased with my life savings. Today, my company generates $2.8 million annually, and my personal net worth sits comfortably at $18 million. But you wouldn't know it by looking at my life. I still live in the same modest townhouse I bought 20 years ago. I shop at outlet malls. I get my hair done at the beauty school. Not because I'm cheap, because I learned early that flashy wealth attracts the wrong kind of attention and corrupts the right kind of character. I wanted Rebecca to work for everything she had, to understand that dignity comes from within, not from a designer label. When she called that Thursday afternoon, I immediately noticed the anxiety threading through her words. Mom, Daniel's parents are flying in from Boston this weekend. They'd like to meet you. We're doing brunch at the Riverside Country Club on Sunday. Can you make it? Of course, sweetheart. I'd love to meet them. There was a pause. Too long. Too heavy. That's great, Mom. Just so you know, Daniel's family is, well, they're pretty traditional. His father is a surgeon and his mother comes from old money. They can be a bit particular. I understood immediately. She was preparing me, warning me, maybe even apologizing in advance for whatever was coming. What did you tell them about me? I asked gently. Another pause. I told them you work in hospitality, that you've been on your own since Dad passed, that you're practical, independent. The word practical hung in the air like a euphemism. She'd soft-pedaled my life, made me sound modest to the point of invisibility. Perhaps she was embarrassed. Perhaps she genuinely believed I was barely scraping by. Either way, I needed to know the truth about these people who might become my daughter's family. I'll be there, Rebecca. You can count on me. That Sunday morning, I dressed for the part. I chose a shapeless beige cardigan that had seen better days, a simple floral dress from a department store clearance rack, sensible shoes with scuffed toes, and no jewelry except my plain wedding band. I pulled my graying hair into a loose bun and skipped makeup entirely. Looking in the mirror, I saw a woman who could easily be invisible, someone struggling to stay afloat, someone easily dismissed. The Riverside Country Club was everything I expected. Manicured lawns, valet parking, people dressed like they stepped out of a yacht catalog. I parked my dented Honda in the far corner of the lot and walked toward the entrance, carrying a worn leather purse I'd deliberately chosen. Inside, the dining room sparkled with crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the golf course. I spotted Rebecca immediately, standing near a large table with Daniel, a clean-cut young man in a blazer, and 2 people who could only be his parents. Daniel's father, Dr. Richard Ashford, wore a tailored navy suit, silver hair perfectly styled, with the confident posture of someone accustomed to being the most important person in any room. His wife, Darlene, dripped with understated elegance, a cream silk blouse, pearl necklace, diamond tennis bracelet, designer handbag. She had the kind of beauty that comes from excellent genetics and expensive maintenance. Rebecca spotted me and waved, but I caught the flash of concern in her eyes as she took in my appearance. I shuffled over, affecting a slightly uncertain gait. Mom, you made it. Her hug was warm but brief. Everyone, this is my mother, Catherine. Dr. Ashford extended his hand. His shake was perfunctory, his smile professional rather than genuine. A pleasure, Catherine, Richard Ashford. So nice to meet you, I said softly, making my voice smaller than usual. Darlene offered 2 fingers in what could barely be called a handshake. Lovely to finally meet you. Her eyes swept over me in one quick, assessing glance. I saw her register everything: the outdated cardigan, the worn shoes, the absence of jewelry. Her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. We sat down. I noticed I'd been placed at the end of the table, slightly separated from the main conversation area. The waiter arrived with leather-bound menus. I opened mine and made a show of looking confused at the prices. "Is everything okay, Mom?" Rebecca asked, noticing my hesitation. "Oh yes, honey. These prices are quite something." I gave an embarrassed little laugh. "I don't usually eat at places like this." Darlene's eyebrow arched slightly. "The Riverside is known for quality. We've been members for 20 years. You simply can't put a price on excellence." "Of course," I murmured. "It's beautiful here." The waiter took orders. When my turn came, I pointed to the least expensive item. "I'll just have the fruit plate, please." Darlene smiled indulgently. "Nonsense, Catherine. Have something substantial. We're celebrating our children's engagement, after all. Get whatever you'd like, it's our treat." The phrasing wasn't lost on me. Our treat. Establishing hierarchy from the first moment. "That's very generous, but the fruit is perfect. I'm not very hungry." The conversation began flowing, but I noticed how it was directed, around me, not to me. Dr. Ashford discussed the hospital where he performed cardiac surgeries, mentioning that last year alone he'd completed over 200 procedures worth roughly $3 million in billings. Darlene talked about their summer home in Martha's Vineyard and their recent Mediterranean cruise. "We were gone for 6 weeks," Darlene said, sipping mimosa. "The yacht accommodated 14 guests comfortably. We sailed from Barcelona to Santorini. Simply divine." Rebecca listened politely. Daniel added details about their family's vineyard in Napa, and I just nodded along, playing my role. Then Darlene turned her attention to me. "So Catherine, Rebecca mentioned you work in hospitality. What exactly do you do?" "I work at hotels," I replied vaguely. "Booking, management tasks, whatever needs doing." "Ah, hotel management," Dr. Ashford said. "That must keep you busy." "Long hours, I imagine?" "Very long," I agreed. "Sometimes 12, 14-hour days." Darlene made a sympathetic sound. "How exhausting. And the pay in that industry, well, it's notoriously challenging, isn't it? I've heard the margins are razor thin." "It's enough to get by," I said quietly. "Of course," Darlene said quickly. "Honest work is always admirable. We respect anyone who works hard, regardless of their circumstances." The condescension was wrapped in pleasantries, but it was unmistakable. "Rebecca tells us you've been on your own since your husband passed," Dr. Ashford continued. "That must have been difficult financially. Life insurance, pension, that sort of thing." I lowered my eyes. "We didn't have much. I've managed, but it's been tight." Darlene and Richard exchanged a glance, brief, but loaded with meaning. The food arrived. Darlene's eggs Benedict, Dr. Ashford's steak and eggs, Daniel's lobster omelet, Rebecca's avocado toast. My small fruit plate looked pitiful by comparison. "This looks wonderful," Darlene said, cutting into her eggs. "This dish runs about $38, but the hollandaise is made fresh daily. You really can taste the difference." Throughout the meal, they continued. Every comment was calibrated to remind me of their wealth and, by extension, my lack thereof. Darlene mentioned their $2.4 million home renovation. Dr. Ashford talked about Daniel's $85,000 medical school debt, which they'd paid off completely, of course, because that's what parents do when they can. Then came the shift. "Catherine," Darlene said, setting down her fork with deliberate care. "Richard and I wanted to discuss something with you while we're all together. It's about Rebecca and Daniel's future." Rebecca tensed. "Mom, maybe we should." "It's fine, darling," Darlene interrupted smoothly. "Catherine and I are adults. I think we can have an honest conversation." I looked at her with wide, uncertain eyes. "Of course," Darlene continued. "Daniel is our only son. We've invested considerably in his future, his education, his career development. We've also committed to helping him and Rebecca establish themselves. We've offered to purchase their first home. We're looking at properties in the $650,000 range, and we'll be contributing $120,000 toward the wedding." I nodded slowly, unsure where this was going. As parents, we naturally want to ensure Daniel enters this marriage with stability, with partners whose families are on equal footing, so to speak. There it was, the knife slipping between my ribs. Dr. Ashford leaned forward. "What Darlene is trying to say, Catherine, is that we understand you've done your best raising Rebecca alone. We respect that. But we also want to make sure that Rebecca and Daniel start their marriage without any financial burdens from either side." My heart was pounding, but I kept my face neutral. I'm not sure I understand. Darlene's smile was practiced. We're offering to help you, Catherine. A monthly stipend, let's say $1,200, to ensure you're comfortable, to ensure you won't need to rely on Rebecca and Daniel as they're starting out. No parent wants to be a burden to their children, do they? The words hit like a slap. A burden. Rebecca's face had gone pale. Mom, stop. You don't need to. Sweetheart, your mother and I are just talking, Darlene said firmly. In exchange, Dr. Ashford added, we'd simply ask that you respect their space. Let them build their marriage without too much interference. Perhaps less frequent visits, fewer calls asking for help. You understand. They wanted to buy me off, to pay me to disappear from my daughter's life so I wouldn't embarrass them with my poverty. The table fell silent. Everyone was looking at me, Rebecca with horror, Daniel with discomfort, Darlene and Richard with expectant confidence. I set down my water glass very carefully. When I spoke, my voice had changed. The timidity was gone, replaced by something crystalline and cold. That's a fascinating offer, Darlene. Let me make sure I understand correctly. You're proposing to give me $1,200 per month in exchange for me essentially vanishing from my daughter's life? Darlene blinked, surprised by the shift in my tone. That's not how I'd phrase it. But that's exactly what you mean. I leaned back in my chair. You're worried that poor, struggling Catherine might show up to family gatherings in her bargain clothes, might ask for money, might tarnish your perfect image. Is that accurate? Dr. Ashford frowned. Now, Catherine, there's no need to be defensive. I'm not defensive. I'm clarifying. You mentioned you're buying them a $650,000 house and spending $120,000 on the wedding. Impressive numbers. That's $770,000 total. And you're offering me $1,200 monthly, $1,400 annually to stay away. That's quite a disparity, don't you think? Darlene's composure was cracking. I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate being treated like a problem to be solved with money. I smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Since we're being honest, let me ask you something. How much do you think I'm worth, Darlene? As a person, I mean. What's the dollar value of my dignity? This is ridiculous, Dr. Ashford said. We were trying to help. No, you were trying to control. I turned to Rebecca. Sweetheart, I want to apologize. I came here today pretending to be someone I'm not. I wanted to see how they'd treat someone they perceived as poor, as less than them. And now I know. Rebecca's eyes widened. Mom, what are you talking about? I reached into my worn purse and pulled out my phone. I opened it to my banking app and slid it across the table to Darlene. Her eyes dropped to the screen. I watched the color drain from her face. That's my personal checking account, I said quietly. The one I use for daily expenses. As you can see, the balance is $487,000. That's just pocket money, really. Dr. Ashford leaned over to look. His jaw tightened. I own 12 boutique hotels across Oregon, Washington, and Northern California, I continued, my voice steady and clear. I purchased the first one 15 years ago, a failing roadside motel, for $200,000. I rebuilt it from the ground up. I slept in the office for the first year. I cleaned rooms myself. I learned the business from every angle. Darlene's hands were trembling slightly. Over the next decade, I acquired and renovated 11 more properties. Last year, my company's gross revenue was $2.8 million. My personal net worth, including property assets, is approximately $18 million. The silence at the table was deafening. Rebecca's mouth hung open. Mom, wait, what? I'm a businesswoman, honey. A successful one. I'm the CEO of Hayes Hospitality Group. I sign contracts, negotiate deals, manage over 200 employees. I sit on the Chamber of Commerce board. Last month, I was invited to speak at a national hospitality conference in Las Vegas. I looked at Darlene. So when you offered me $1,200 a month, I found it quaint. That's less than I spend on maintenance for my pool house. Dr. Ashford recovered first. If you have all this money, why do you live like a normal person? I finished. Because money doesn't define me. I drive a 10-year-old car because it runs perfectly. I shop at outlets because I don't need to prove anything to strangers. I live modestly because I learned that the more you have, the less you need to show it. Darlene found her voice. You deceived us. You came here in those clothes pretending. I came here dressed simply to see your true character, and you showed me exactly who you are. You judged me within 30 seconds of meeting me. You decided I was beneath you, that I was a burden, that I needed to be managed like a problem. That's not fair, Dr. Ashford protested. Isn't it? You spent the entire brunch talking about your money, your home, your yacht, your property, how much you've spent on Daniel. Every comment was designed to put me in my place. You measured my worth by my appearance and found me lacking. Rebecca was staring at me with tears in her eyes. Mom, why didn't you ever tell me? I reached across and took her hand. Because I wanted you to build your own life, sweetheart. I wanted you to work hard, to appreciate what you earned, to choose your partner based on love, not financial security. I didn't want you to be the spoiled heiress coasting on her mother's money. But you let me think you were struggling. You assumed I was struggling. I never said that. You saw my modest lifestyle and made assumptions. Everyone does. Darlene was recovering her composure, but her face was flushed. Even if this is true, it doesn't excuse your deception. We came here in good faith. Did you? I cut her off. Did you come here with respect and kindness? Or did you come here planning to put the poor widow in her place, to establish dominance, to make it clear that your family is superior? When she didn't answer, I continued. I've built my success on reading people, Darlene. 15 years in business teaches you to spot arrogance, entitlement, and shallow values very quickly. You have all three. Dr. Ashford stood up abruptly. I think we're done here. This is insulting. Sit down, Richard. My voice had the snap of command. Surprisingly, he sat. Let me tell you what's going to happen now, I said calmly. Rebecca and Daniel are adults. They'll make their own decisions about their relationship. But if they choose to get married, I want you to understand something very clearly. I will never be someone you can intimidate, manipulate, or buy off. I pulled out my wallet, a simple leather one, deliberately chosen for today. From it, I extracted a platinum American Express card and placed it on the table. This is a Centurion card, invitation only, no spending limit. I use it for business expenses that sometimes run into 6 figures per month. The annual fee alone is $5,000. Darlene stared at it as if it were a snake. The check for today's brunch will be $340, I continued. I'll cover it. Consider it my engagement gift, showing you that the woman you tried to humiliate can buy and sell your country club lifestyle without breaking a sweat. The waiter approached hesitantly. I handed him the card without looking away from the Ashfords. For the table, please. Add a 30% tip. When the waiter left, I stood up. Rebecca, Daniel, I'm sorry this brunch didn't go as planned, but I needed to know what kind of people they are. Now I do. What you do with that information is up to you. Rebecca stood up, tears streaming down her face. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they would. You didn't know because you've never seen this side of them. They're charming when everyone knows their place. They're generous when it reinforces their superiority. But the moment they meet someone they think is beneath them, the mask slips. I looked at Darlene one last time. You asked what I do in hospitality. I'll tell you. I create spaces where every guest is treated with equal dignity, whether they're in a $60 room or a $300 suite, because I learned something your money couldn't teach you. Respect isn't bought, it's earned, and you've earned nothing but my contempt. Dr. Ashford's face was red. You have no right. I have every right. I'm a mother protecting her daughter from people who value her based on what she can bring to their social status. The waiter returned with the receipt. I signed it quickly, added $100 in cash as additional tip, and picked up my worn purse. Rebecca, call me when you're ready to talk. Really talk. I looked at Daniel. You seem like a decent young man, but ask yourself, is this the family dynamic you want, where people are valued by their bank accounts, where kindness is conditional on wealth? I walked toward the exit, my head high. Behind me, I heard Darlene's voice, shrill and defensive. This is absurd. We were trying to help. How dare she? And Rebecca's voice, stronger than I'd ever heard it. No, Mom was right. You were horrible. I saw every comment, every look. You treated her like she was nothing. I smiled as I pushed through the doors into the sunlight. 3 days later, Rebecca appeared at my townhouse. She'd clearly been crying. I opened the door and she fell into my arms. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. I held her as she sobbed. When she finally pulled back, I led her to the living room, the same modest space I'd kept for years. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "About the hotels, the money, everything? Would it have changed how you lived your life?" "No, but..." "Then that's why. I wanted you to be Rebecca Hayes, not the hotel heiress. I wanted you to work hard, to be proud of your own accomplishments." "Daniel's parents were mortified after you left," Rebecca said. "His mother cried. His father said you were classless for deceiving them. They want Daniel to reconsider the engagement." My heart sank. "And what does Daniel say?" Rebecca smiled through her tears. "He told them they were wrong. He said you showed them exactly what they needed to see, that they're snobs who judge people by their wealth. He said if they can't accept you, then maybe he's marrying into the wrong family." I felt a surge of respect for this young man. "We've set boundaries," Rebecca continued. "We told them they're welcome in our lives, but the judgment stops. The financial control stops. The conditional love stops." "How did they take it?" "Badly. They're threatening to withdraw their support. Darlene said I'm throwing away my future. Richard said they won't pay for the wedding." I took Rebecca's hands. "And how do you feel?" "Free," she whispered. "For the first time I feel free. I don't want their money if it comes with those strings. I'd rather have a small wedding and start from scratch than live under their control." "That's my girl," I said proudly. "But Mom..." Rebecca hesitated. "Can I ask you something? Anything. When you pretended to be poor, were you testing me too? Seeing if I'd be ashamed of you?" I thought carefully before answering. "Maybe a little, but mostly I was testing them. And you passed, sweetheart. You defended me. You saw through their cruelty." Rebecca nodded. "I was ashamed, though. Before I knew the truth, when I saw you in that cardigan, I felt embarrassed." "What does that say about me?" "It says you're human. You were worried about judgment. But when it mattered, you stood up for me. That's what counts." "Daniel wants to meet with you," Rebecca said. "Alone. He says he needs to apologize on behalf of his parents and assure you he's nothing like them." "I'd like that. And Mom, the wedding. Could you help us plan something real? Something that's about love, not money?" I smiled. "I'd be honored. But let's make a deal. We do this on a reasonable budget. Not because we have to, but because we want to. Because the marriage matters, not the show." Rebecca hugged me again. "Thank you. For everything. For teaching me what really matters." 6 months later, Rebecca and Daniel married in a small ceremony at one of my hotels, a charming Victorian property overlooking the coast. 50 guests, simple elegant decor, personally meaningful details. The total cost was $15,000. I could have spent 10 times that, but it wasn't about money. It was about love. Darlene and Richard attended. They were polite, distant, still processing their humiliation. But I saw Darlene watching me throughout the day, studying how I moved through the world, how people respected me, not because of what I wore, but because of how I treated them. At the reception, she approached me. "Catherine, may I speak with you?" We stepped onto the veranda overlooking the ocean. "I owe you an apology," Darlene said stiffly. "I judged you unfairly. I assumed many things that were wrong." "You assumed I was poor, so I didn't deserve respect," I said bluntly. "That's the core issue." She flinched. "I was raised to value success, achievement. And you confused money with character." I turned to face her. "Darlene, I don't need your apology for misunderstanding my bank account. I need you to understand that what you did was wrong regardless of whether I had money or not. If I had been the struggling widow you thought I was, I still would have deserved kindness." Her eyes filled with tears. "You're right. I see that now." "Do you? Or do you only see it because you were embarrassed?" "Both," she admitted quietly. "I was raised in a world where wealth equaled worth. It's all I knew. Watching you these past months, seeing how Rebecca and Daniel respect you, how your employees admire you, I realize I've been shallow." I softened slightly. "Self-awareness is the first step. What you do with it is what matters." "I'd like to try," she said. "To be better, to see people differently. Then start by treating people with kindness before you know their bank balance. That's the test." She nodded. "I will, I promise." As she walked away, Rebecca appeared at my side. "What was that about?" "Your mother-in-law is learning," I said. "Maybe there's hope for her yet." Rebecca slipped her arm through mine. "Mom, I learned something from all this. What's that? That the richest person I know is the one who taught me that money doesn't matter. That integrity does, that kindness does, that how you treat others when you have nothing to gain, that's what defines you. I smiled, watching the sun set over the ocean, turning the water to gold. That, sweetheart, is a lesson worth more than all my hotels combined. And I meant it.